Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I'll record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So, welcome to Beta Bloc. Let's hit one thing to hit off right off the bat is the grading system. Beta Bloc is known for their very unique grading system. So the way it works is they have 6 circuits, and within each circuits there are 3 different tiers of difficulty. So this boulder, for example, is a first tier 6, and I'll give you like a little graphic at the top left of your screen as we go along. And so obviously the first tier is the easiest, second tier is the second hardest, and then if we have a grade that is like the 3rd tier, it's the hardest of its kind. Which I think is quite cool. It's a very thorough grading system, and I actually personally quite like it. You can think of it almost like, let's say you got a V8 minus, a V8, and a V8 plus. And so that's the way that the grading works here. So another thing to note about Beta Bloc, well, first of all, I've been here once before. Maddie and I visited when we were in Montreal for the Jackalope. And so this is my 2nd session. And then another thing to note about Beta Bloc is it is regarded as one of the hardest gyms in Montreal, if not the hardest. I think from my experience, I'd say it's probably like Beta Bloc and maybe Bloc Shop H are tied with the hardest gyms, or at least they'll have like the top 2 or 3 boulders up in the gym at a time will be the hardest in Montreal. Like the hardest boulders here are quite similar to, the white tapes at Bloc Shop H, at least in my opinion. And so I even noticed it while I was warming up here at Beta Bloc. You just go around and like none of the boulders are easy. Like even the 4 circuit and the 5 circuit, I'm like falling in my warm up. It was very actually refreshing to have like so many hard boulders, even in the easier circuits. It was actually very reminiscent of B-PUMP Ogikubo, which is a famous gym in Tokyo, where there are so many pro climbers that climb at B-PUMP that you just have like even like the 4th hardest circuit is like V10s and whatnot. It's not quite at the B-PUMP level of difficulty here, but the similar theme, it was a similar theme where it had just like hard boulders even in the lower circuits, which was really cool. And so I found that there were just so many boulders to try in the session. So let's talk about this boulder really quick. This boulder features a move at the end, which is a pretty prominent weakness of mine. Overhead pressing in general, I've always struggled with in the past. And so what I did is I started to up my military press training by quite a bit. And I've noticed a lot of gains. It's still definitely not a strength of mine. And when I do encounter an overhead press, I'm not super psyched about it. And I find that I still do struggle with it a bit. And obviously I've been struggling with this move here quite a lot, trying to match this finish hold. This wall is like a little bit overhanging, and this finish match is very, very intense. And so this boulder will feature today's tip of the day, a technique that I implied on this attempt here coming up, which is a Sengo, and that I used in order to be able to match a finish hold. And this is a pretty fundamental technique as well to always keep in mind with climbing. So this was a very micro adjustment I made on this boulder. So basically what I do is I just simply step a little bit outwards on the gray circle. So what I've been doing in my previous attempts is I've been putting my foot sort of right up against the wall. And on this try, I place it a little bit outwards. So I actually end up stepping on a little bit of the worst part of the hold, but my foot is a little bit further away from the wall. And so the way that the reason this is super good is let's take like an exaggerated scenario, which I like to do often with the tips of the days for this technique. Let's say that our foot was like, we took it and we placed it even further than the wall. So it was like, into the wall in theory, in this situation. It would feel so impossible to match that hold, right? With our foot way in front of us. There would just be no way that we could simply press ourselves so hard in order to match. But now let's like flip it around. Let's say that we were standing on the ledge and our foot was like all the way back away from the wall. Now all of a sudden we can just, lean against the wall, and it's almost like a no hands position. And so this exaggerated scenario is just showing why stepping a little bit further out from the volume helps you lean into the wall a little bit more and take a bit of the pressure off of your arms and use your legs to absorb a bit of the pressure. And so even just this little micro adjustment by taking my foot the tiniest bit away from the wall gives me that extra like 5% that I need to match this really, really hard finish move. And this technique also comes a lot into play a lot on slab climbing, like especially when we're standing on volumes. Often you'll want to stand on the edge of the volume so that we can lean into the wall to balance better. And it can even be applied on overhanging boulders such as this. So yeah, today's tip of the day is sometimes you want to step a little bit further out from the wall on a hold or a big hold or a big volume so that we can lean into the wall a bit more to absorb the pressure onto our legs rather than our arms. So this boulder was pretty fun looking. I think that I actually may have kind of cheated the sequence a little bit at the beginning. When I was first looking at this boulder, I thought, okay, so we'll start with our left hand on the crimp, go up to the first black sloper, and then probably bring our left hand up to the gray sloper, and then jump up to this better black sloper that I'm holding with my right hand right now. But unfortunately, I was able to sort of bump up again. And I think this boulder would have been quite epic if I had to sort of jump off of the gray volume up to the next black and do like a little bit of a swing. That would have been cool. But I was just able to reach it. And then you see I got like a pretty desperate finish match of that boulder. That technique helped, but it was still a super, super physically intense finish match. And I was glad to conquer my weakness of my overhead press on that boulder. So now we are moving on to this boulder. This boulder was the highlight of the whole day for me, for sure. This boulder is it said it was a comp circuit. So I didn't actually see any other comp circuit boulders up. This was the only one that I saw that was up in the gym. And this boulder was super epic. One of the staff at the gym today was telling me that Victor Fleur, who's the head setter here at Beta Bloc, put up this boulder right before he went to set for an event. And he also put up like another hard one that we'll get to later. You know, I'm sure a lot of Montreal viewers know who Victor Fleur is. He's one of the best setters in Canada right now. I think he was part of the setting team for the national championships that happened like a couple months ago. And he set for like lots of nationals. And this guy is known for just being a genius. Like his boulders are just amazing. And something I noticed throughout the whole gym on all these boulders was just the quality of the movement. I was really realizing that Beta Bloc, like the sort of aesthetics of the climb, the boulders up in the gym are like obviously quite good and are up there with a lot of the best gyms in Montreal and the surrounding areas. And so I'd say it's like, you know, just as good on par with like all these pretty gyms, like, you know, Rose Block, Bloc Shop, Alley Up, all of these places. But I think that Beta Bloc, at least right now, like it's still early on, we've only been in Montreal for a little bit. I might be putting Beta Bloc down as like my number one gym in terms of like the quality of the movement. That's what I was really noticing throughout this day of training, was that the movements were just so unique and like well thought out and set like, it was a really, really well set gym. Like the holds were perfectly bad for a lot of these sequences. And they were just like creative, like really, really well thought out movements that you just have to have like a good intuition for as a setter to be able to set. And so let's tune into what's happening right here on the screen. I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna send this boulder. And then I was like, oh no, I just fell matching the finish of that. And this boulder is obviously a pump fest. I was so upset that happened, but recently I've been getting better at walking away from boulders when I have to and trying to optimize for training. And so, you know, for training purposes, I really shouldn't be spending any more time on this boulder. So I said, okay, you know, let me just go move on. Theoretically, I definitely have what it takes to do this boulder. I just fell matching the finish hold, obviously. And I started to walk away from the boulder, and I was actually pretty proud of myself. I said, okay, I'm actually leaving this boulder, which, is really hard for me because I hate doing that. Finish droppers, falling on finish matches, it's really hard for me to walk away. Maddie's much better at this than I am. And so I started to walk away from the boulder, and then all of a sudden I just was like, no, it's too triggering. I can't just leave this epic, 5-star Victor Fleur project undone when I'm this close. And so I said, okay, let me go put a few more tries on it. And then here we go. I finally get a send of it. And I guess I got a relatively quick send of this boulder. It didn't take too many tries, but this boulder felt like pretty limit. It's not evident at the end here, but I'm pumping out hard. I'm like, when I take that foot cut on the crimp and the pinch, my eyes are closed. I'm just like, trying really hard. And this was definitely like a limit boulder. And what a 5-star. You could tell by like the quality of the movements and it was just like an epic boulder, and we're gonna get to more of these epic boulders later. So this 6 circuit here is like another good example of just like the really high quality movement that I was noticing in the gym. Like this first move here is a bit unsuspecting. Like when I first looked at this boulder, I thought, okay, it looks pretty doable, and it's just a first tier of 6. But after trying this boulder a bit more, I realized that I wasn't respecting it enough, and I didn't give this boulder the amount of focus that it turns out it needed. And the first tier 6 grading of this boulder was like a bit deceptive. This one actually felt like one of the hardest 6s in the gym for me. This first move is really hard. These holds are like super bad, and you have to have like the perfect amount of momentum to hold this swing. And like, this is what I mean with like the high quality movement, is this boulder is just like set so perfectly that these holds are just the perfect amount of bad. It's like right on the edge of being swingable, and then you're just like set up really nicely to do this awkward, uncomfortable, like off balance paddle dyno, which is like just very, very comp style, like forcing these really uncomfortable off balance moves. Like this is like just really, really high quality setting on this boulder and a lot of boulders going forward. And that's just, I think we'll be visiting Beta Block a lot. I think this is one of the best gyms in Montreal right now. Another cool thing about that boulder that we just did was this was like a previous tip of the day of mine. Obviously I had to sort of jump between those 2 slopers at the beginning there, and you know, like the foothold was not too low for me to not keep it, but I actually had to force myself to take a foot cut because hanging on those slopers was a bit more optimal for me than trying to keep the foot, because the foot actually just pushed me a bit further away from the wall. Whereas if I forced the foot cut and I was hanging on the holds, I actually got more friction, and that's how I was able to hold the first move of that boulder. And moving on to the next boulder here, speaking of high quality movements, check out this very epic sequence on like this slab with this coordination move. I'd actually seen a video of somebody doing this move before, which is why I'm attempting this crazy sequence like right off the bat. I didn't come up with this on my own necessarily, and I wonder if I would actually. It's obviously a very, very crazy coordination move. I don't know if I would have seen that sequence, or if I would have tried to go for like a more powerful method and maybe tried to hold one of the holds on its own. But when I saw like a video of this epic sequence, I had to go try it immediately because it looked super cool. And now we're moving on to a 4 circuit. And so Maddie actually told me to go try this one because she was like, hey, go try that 4. It's like really good and really hard. And it turned out to be like quite hard and fun. And I was definitely noticing that like this was like just another good example of just, all the boulders at Beta Block are hard. Like there's just nothing easy, and even the 4s can get you, which is super, super cool. So after resting for about 3 hours, it was time for session 2. And there were definitely a lot more boulders to get on in the session. The main focus of the session was going to be, there was a really spicy looking paddle boulder up on the roof that we're gonna get to later, and also like a couple slabs. And so the plan was to do like a physical boulder or 2 to get the fingers nice and warm, to go try the really, really hard looking paddle, probably the hardest looking boulder up in the gym, and then finish off with some slabs. The red one was probably the second hardest boulder in the gym, the one that you see on the left that we did earlier. But then the boulder that we are about to switch to and start attempting, it was definitely like the hardest boulder in the gym, for sure. This is another Victor Fleur boulder, I believe. And this one has got this crazy looking paddle move. As we can see at the beginning, this first hold that we are gonna swing off is really bad. And actually what I'm doing here, I should mention is, and I actually forgot to mention this when we were trying the red one earlier today as well, is you'll notice that I didn't give the red one an attempt from the ground first, which is also what I'm doing here. I'm running the ending first of this boulder actually. I'm not even giving it a flash go. And the reason for this is that this is, you know, a pretty long boulder and it looks quite pumpy. And same with the red one from earlier today. And this is something that I do often in training, is to avoid getting like super flash pumped and ruining the rest of a boulder session. With longer boulders in general, actually, I'll run the ending first so that I have a bit more muscle memory and my body knows what to expect, and I don't pump myself out super hard with like an extra hard flash go. And now all of a sudden I've got so much pump that I can't get rid of it throughout the rest of the session, and the whole session is ruined. And so I actually try to like dodge this pump factor by running the ending of a boulder first when it looks quite long and pumpy, like this one was. So after doing like a quick little suss out of the ending, I decided to start attempting the beginning, and it has this crazy looking paddle move, as I was just saying. So the first hold is like quite bad, but the really hard part about this first move is that we're in a cave, like this wall is quite steep, and this camera angle actually doesn't do justice just how back, like sideways this move is. Like it looks like we're sort of paddling upwards, but because this is such a cave, we're actually paddling like outwards, like towards the camera, right? And the right hand is like way further in the cave than it looks here. So it's more of like an outwards paddle rather than an upwards paddle, which makes it just insanely hard, because once we like start to get our left hand on this crimp pinch, we just have so much backswing, and there's no way that I can like really hold the sloper anymore. And you kind of just have to take a one armor off this crimp, which is not super good. It's like, it's part of that dual text like cheetah screw on line. That's like one of the slopey ones. And it's, you just have, like in order to hold this move, you'd have to stick that hold absolutely perfectly. And I would have to be feeling like super good. It definitely felt possible. It didn't feel impossible, but it would probably take a gazillion tries, and I would have to be feeling like mega, like absolutely like 100%. And I had a better feeling morning session than I did in the evening. So I started to like power out by the second session, and I was definitely also getting a little bit of pink tips, which has been a while since I've got pink tips, because there were a lot of we're climbing a lot of fiberglass in the morning. And so for all these factors, I was like, okay, you know what? I think that this paddle is just not happening. Maybe in theory it could happen one day, and maybe this boulder will still be up the next time we come to Beta Block, and I'll get to retry it. So what I decided to do was actually, okay, you know, I ran the ending just to say that I could see if I could do the last half of the boulder. And then I started messing around a bit here and started to see if a foot first sequence was possible. And I think it actually might be a little bit doable. I think that it like, yes, it's maybe doable, but honestly, if I'm gonna try this boulder again, I should be practicing the paddle, because I'm sort of ruining the integrity of the boulder. But yeah, I didn't quite think that I'd be able to do that one, so I moved on from it like pretty quick. I didn't want to just waste all my skin on that paddle for nothing. So now check out this foot stack here. So I just decided to give a little close up to this foothold that we're jumping to on the slab. This would maybe make it into the Instagram like bouldering fails or whatever, route setting fails. But personally, I think that this is epic. Like I love stuff like this. I think it's super fun, and it's great for like a comp style boulder as well, because this sort of like feature with all these stacked footholds, if you know a competitor was to see this in an event, it would really like start like getting you thinking, and like really like, you know, playing mind games and making you feel insecure, and just creating like a new experience, which setters are always trying to go for when there's like setting for comps, is to try and like just trip you out and get your brain like confused. And so I appreciate this on like a commercial boulder, for the reason that it's actually not very commercial. Like this is like a very comp style boulder, because the setter like is really going out of their way to try and trip you up. And that's why I think Beta Block is actually like definitely got some of the most comp style boulders in Montreal. And I'm super psyched to be coming here a lot. So after doing that slab, I had a couple more boulders to get to. And this one here looked like a bit of a paddle. And then halfway through the paddle, I realized I could just stop on this hold, this first red hold. And something I guess I didn't mention was I went about like 15 minutes overtime in the first session actually. So it was supposed to be just an hour of bouldering in the morning. And I did climb for an hour and 15. So what I decided to do was, since my skin was getting low and I went a little bit overtime in the morning, I decided that I would go under time in the second session. just to preserve a bit of skin, especially because spray wall is tomorrow, and there's quite a lot of fiberglass on the spray wall at Hochelaga. So while we're in Montreal, actually, skin preservation is going to be more prevalent and more of a battle for me than it was in Ontario, because we'll be climbing on a lot more fiberglass. So we're just going to do a 45-minute session of bouldering for the second session, which means I only have a few more boulders to get to, and then the session is over. And this one that we're trying here is a 5 circuit, the first tier. And this is just another great example of like a really, really tricky boulder, like disguised in an easier circuit grade. This one is like really comp style, really like you feel really insecure in the middle, and trusting your feet is quite difficult. And so that boulder for me is, you know, harder than a lot of the physical 6s, but that's just the nature of comp style boulders. And I think Beta Bloc does a really good job of just giving you all of these like tricky boulders, even in the easier grades, which I just can't say enough of how much I'm enjoying this. So this here ends up being the last boulder of the session. Another nice slab. The slab quality at this gym is like really, really solid. So that wraps up our whole day of training at Beta Bloc. Beta Bloc is definitely in the running for like my favorite gym in Montreal right now. It's gonna go back. I'm gonna keep switching back and forth between what my favorite gym is, but Beta Bloc is definitely like, I almost want to call it my favorite. The quality of setting there is amazing, and I can't wait to keep coming here and training. But for now, we are going to move on into our spray wall session at Bloc Shop Hochelaga, which is the next day of training. So here we are the next day at Bloc Shop Hochelaga for our spray wall session. And holy cow, when I woke up this morning, I realized the full state of carnage on my fingertips. It's been a while since I've had like any sort of pink fingertips, but Beta Bloc in particular like really got me good. We were doing like a lot of hard climbing on like, a lot of fiberglass, lots of jumping around and catching holds really aggressively. And I'm definitely starting to feel the repercussions of all of these epic boulders that we've been climbing in Montreal so far. So going into the session, I knew it was going to be quite challenging. And the other quite challenging part of this session is that the spray wall that we have here at Bloc Shop is just filled with like beautiful fiberglass holds. And so it's not even like I'm really escaping the friction. And like back home at Climbers Rock, at least we have like some older holds and some somewhat greasy holds in our spray wall, which can be good for the skin. But I'm now realizing just how important like skin management in terms of like fingertips is going to be while we're in Montreal. And so for this session on the spray wall, I did my best to try and make some boulders that wouldn't wreck my skin too much. And not only was my skin a bit pink, but I was feeling quite tired and sore from yesterday. So this feeling that I was feeling today, thankfully, was like the good kind of wrecked. Like it wasn't just a random garbage feeling day. I could tell that under normal circumstances, I would be feeling pretty good, but I was just sort of destroyed from all of the like the epic hard bouldering that we did yesterday, which is always a very satisfying feeling. And it can be, even though it like kind of hurts a bit, it's actually satisfying to have a session when you're feeling like this, because it means you worked hard the previous day. So for this session, I made up some boulders that I knew were probably going to be not like absolute limit boulders, just because I wasn't going to be feeling at 100% with the pink skin and just being quite sore. So I made up some boulders in like the V9 to 10 range. This boulder here that we're trying now was like a perfect boulder for the session. And I made this one up quite intentionally. You'll notice that we have just like a lot of static movements, and that can be quite helpful and crucial for like a session where you have pink skin. Even though we're climbing on some fiberglass holds here, we're not jumping to any of them. There's no like jump and catch moves. It's all very static, and this is a way that I can protect my skin when I'm having some of these days. And this boulder in particular was quite cool. You'll notice I'm sort of playing around with the sequence. When I made this boulder, I saw a few sequences in mind, and honestly, this is kind of how it goes when I set myself boulders on a spray wall, or even just like making up boulders in general. The way I kind of try to go about it is to see like a few different sequences and like get an idea of like, okay, it's definitely possible for me to figure out something to climb this boulder using these holds. And then as soon as I realize a boulder is possible, I usually try to stop, like really overthinking a sequence. And what this does is it actually helps me still have an element of like root reading practice and like still trying to solve a boulder, even though I set it myself. So you'll see, obviously on this boulder, like my sequence is changing a lot. I'm like switching up my beta, learning like the optimal sequence for this boulder, even though I set it. So this is oftentimes how I try to go about making up boulders, is try not to, I try to think about it just enough, like try to think about a sequence just enough until I know a boulder is possible, and then stop thinking about it and save the rest of it for the problem solving aspect of the boulder. Because that's, especially as a competitive boulder, that's like half the battle. And so I figured out that it was actually better to like try and get my right hand on this black crimp so I could do this gnarly cross move into this orange hold, which is a super cool move. There's like a bit of a divot on this orange sloper, as you can see, so it's not like I'm just grabbing nothing there. There's definitely a bit of an edge there, and it was like just good enough to do this crazy cross move, and this boulder was quite epic. And then this one here is the last boulder of the session. This one, again, we have like some static movements, and like I tried to pick some of the greasiest looking slopers on this wall because a lot of the other ones were quite sticky. But this blue one here is actually a bit slippery. It's gotten a lot of wear and tear, so it's a bit greasy. Yellow one's okay, and then this blue one that we're going up for the left is definitely a bit stickier than the others. So I was wincing a little bit every time I had to grab that one. But then this boulder, I started to realize that, yeah, like skin is going to be so important. Like we reach a point in our sessions where it's like I almost wish that I could just go slab climb right now, because once I eventually stick this move to the blue sloper here, this next move that we're going for, like up to this yellow pinch, like when I set the boulder, I think, okay, yeah, we can sort of jump up to this yellow pinch, and these holds look definitely like pretty swingable. But I could just feel myself like not being able to commit at 100% to go jump up to this pinch, because like especially on my right hand is where I have more of the pink tips, and so I'm just like subconsciously my body's like, please don't make me have to jump and go grab this yellow pinch. And like, so all these tries are sort of half-assed because my body's instincts are just like not wanting to accept the pain of having to like grip and rip off this pinch with like pink tips. And so yeah, today was like the eye-opening of that. I just really need to be conscious of the skin while we're here in Montreal, because we got like a lot of comp style stuff and lots of fiberglass that we're gonna be climbing on. And another way to combat this is honestly just to make sure that I force myself to climb like a lot of slab during our boulder sessions, even if that means I have to make up some slab boulders or just go and like do some repeats. Climbing slab is a good way of obviously working on like comp style bouldering, which is like the goal for the sessions that we have when we're bouldering, and also preserve the skin, and so I can still have like good enough spray wall sessions and campus sessions and so forth. Another helpful thing is rhino performance. I do like rhino performance, and I actually forgot to use some before the session today, which is kind of why I was like, it was extra hard today. But going forward, I'll get some rhino performance going on. I find that's like really helpful for pink skin. So that wraps up a couple days of training. Beta block, absolutely amazing. Can't wait to go back there and have another boulder session. For now, I need a rest day, heal up my skin. And then I think the next video, you can expect a boulder session at Bloc Shop H. So obviously we climbed at Chabanel in our first video in Montreal, but this gym that we were just having our spray wall at, the Hochelaga location of Bloc Shop, we have yet to get on the boulders in the gym set, which I have been, obviously while we're in this gym, I'm like looking around the boulders the whole time, and I can't wait. There are some pretty epic boulders up, pretty epic looking boulders up right now that I can't wait to get on. So look forward to that in the next episode. Insert catch the video tree here.